Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Mark, and season 3 of Gravity Throttle Racing is over. But I'll tell you what, there is so much that I appreciate about getting 34 cars, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that entered season 3 tournament. You may have felt like your car didn't do well, it's kind of like, and then some of you might feel like, wow, I did great. And the purpose of this video is to break down what I think makes the biggest differences, what makes the cars perform better versus, well, maybe it looked like it performed better, but it's not that big a deal, okay? And a good example of that is I got really focused on weight distribution at the beginning of the tournament, and I even would tell you what your weight distribution was. Yes, you kind of want to go for 50-50. So like, let's say, here's a nice bright yellow car right here, and this is Cubert. Ideally, the best weight distribution front to rear is 50-50, but it's not gospel. You don't have to like really try to stay to it. You can have something that's more like 60-40 and do well. And if you don't believe me, well, this car was more like 60-40, and guess what it did? It won the tournament. We'll get to this car in just a minute. All right, so why am I sharing this? I'm going to try to point out some significant things that I saw behind the scenes during the racing. This is a lessons learned video. I'm going to share names of the drivers, and this is not personal. It's not like one builder is better than another. In fact, if we had not done this, if I had not asked you to sing cars, none of this could be possible. And it all begins with me. I made the decision to give you all a 70-gram weight limit, and that was dumb. Really, I had no idea what I was asking for, because I got these cars that were so fast on my track that the optimal weight is probably closer to 55, okay? And I'll get to that in just a minute. But we're going to start with this. We're going to start with 6 Ford Escorts. Yes, I had 6 Ford Escorts entering the tournament. And so here they are. All right, we have the 6 Ford Escorts, and would you like to guess which one of the 6 was the lightest? And the answer is Giorgio, our 3rd place finisher. Would you like to guess which one had the most flexible suspension? The answer is Giorgio. Okay, so really what you're looking at is the heaviest at 67.5 grams all the way down to 48 grams, about a 20-gram difference. And the reason I'm bringing all these cars to your attention is, everything else can seem about the same, right? Especially the body shape. But some of these cars, and again, I'm not picking on my favorite. My favorite is Lily the dog. So yeah, here's Lily. Go Lily. All right, so the reason why Lily ended up on her back so much is because she has very, very stiff suspension. I mean, I can't move it if I tried. Okay, so she gets on the scrambler and she is along for the ride, and often along for the ride. And that's why she didn't go as far. The weight was under my limit. Let's contrast her with Giorgio, okay? Now the rest of these drivers had some tight suspensions and some had a little looser, but the loosest or the most flexible suspension was Giorgio. And it's kind of hard to see in the video here, but I can take and I can rock his wheel axle, especially, oh, you can see in the rear. Yeah, you can see that with the rear. It's got a good rocking action. So look, if he were going down the scrambler, you can see where all that energy is being absorbed without the car flipping over. And Giorgio did a good job. So I wanted to point out that one of the most critical aspects of successful travel down my track and consistent runs is not too heavy. These are the 60-gram and above range. Here are the 50s, a little bit more ideal, but still maybe a little too stiff in the suspension. And then there's the 48-pound entry that had what turned out to be a very optimal suspension for this track. Okay, so let's now move on from the Ford Escorts and talk about some of the heavier cars. All right, you're going to recognize some of these. Here's a Datsun. I love this Datsun. This is just so cool. Dude diecast, okay? Very tight suspension. Can't move it at all. He's 67 or 68 grams, and unfortunately he lost in a sudden death. But very similar shape to the Escorts. Numbskulls. Yeah, this is such a cool looking car. It's not really a rallycross car, but close to 70 grams, and very low CG, very tight suspension. I suspect that this car is ideal for crash racers. You know, it is. I suspect this thing would win a race, right? But on the rallycross track, Chavano Mountain Raceway, even on the scrambler, it found itself flipping over. Okay. Other heavy cars. Cubert, heavy car, over 70 grams. Okay. Very, very stiff suspension. Had trouble. Love this next car. You guys remember this, the Golden Owls Brat. This would be perfect for the truck tournament. 67.5 grams. Okay, heavy car. It's got a little bit of a little flexibility back here on the rear. Problem is, all the weight's too high. So in the truck tournament, I'm going to allow you to put a black painted or a black weight down here, and those tire balance weights are optimal. Secure it to the bottom. You can do one or two, and you'll lower the CG. The upper limit for the trucks will be 58 grams. So, you know, tucked in here somewhere is added weight to get it up to in the 60s. But that's a good example of being able to take a truck, really cool looking truck, and making it work for the next tournament. Okay. You guys remember the Integrals, Bull Brown and Mr. Dark. You know, both cars had their own advantages. This is the fastest car on the pole position. I actually think this guy was faster, but you know, hey, it's pole position day. Mr. Dark won it. Victory is his. And Bull Brown's flipped, if you remember. Well, Bull Brown's suspension, look at that, it's pretty loose. See how I can wiggle the axle back and forth? So again, it did pretty well. It actually did pretty well on the scrambler. But again, both of these are in the 60 gram range. So just wanted to point this out. A little heavier than the 58-pound limit the 58-pound limit that I'm going to impose on the next tournament. Let's continue talking about drifting. Okay, remember these two guys drifted well. They were good drifters, and their weights were close to 50-50. Okay, some of these heavier cars overdrifted all the time. You guys remember our fourth place finisher, Daddy G. You know, poor Daddy G, he would overdrift all the time. Well, he's 69.5 grams. And my theory is that these heavier cars, it doesn't matter where the weight distribution is, they just are going to overdrift. It happened with our second place finisher, Piggy. Look at the suspension. The suspension is very optimal. You can see that I can play with the wheels. And yet, it just seemed to always overdrift. I don't think it's because it's a Subaru. I'm just saying that these cars, which normally straight out of the box do a little better drifting, once we add a lot of weight, over 60 grams, okay, or over 58 grams, had a tendency to just come over and overdrift. Come off the drift ramp and overdrift. 52 grams. 52 grams, Marco Polo. Really good drifting car. Okay, you saw this guy had the best drift in the finals. 48 grams, 52 grams. You see a theme here? How about the suspension? The suspension. Yeah, look at that. Lots of wiggle room for this car to do well in the scrambler. Two examples right there of cars that can handle all the terrain on the track and be consistent. Okay, I had a couple cars that performed well. These two cars performed well, but had fundamental or systemic, boy, that sounds really engineering, systemic issues. Their front scoops were too low. Okay, so just remember that. I went ahead, you know, it was my first tournament, right? We're all learning together. I wasn't going to DQ these racers. I shaved down with my Dremel and cut with my metal cutters the scoops off of these cars so that they could traverse through the first jump, okay? And both of them did well. They both did well in the races. Both of them have, actually, it looks like They See Me Rollin' had a more flexible suspension. Yeah, that's right. And this one was a bit tighter. And so this one went further in the tournament. Duh. Let's talk about this guy. The car that never takes a bath. Biscuit Brown's Camaro. And, you know, it has this modified suspension. But I'll tell you right now, Joe at Smooth Boy admits it's too soft. This car would have handled the egg beater in season 2 and 1 with ease. Remember, Smooth Boy entered that Oldsmobile 442 and Biscuit Brown was the runner-up. Beautiful drifting. You know, that car was so sweet to film when it drifted. And this car, it didn't drift. And so neither Joe or I fully understood why. But I suspect that part of that is this very loose suspension, very loose, absorbed what would otherwise be a yawing moment induced by that little ramp as it comes off. And so it just said, nope, I want to keep going forward. So let me talk about one more driver. And this guy is a gem. I'm not kidding you. This car here, short wheelbase, you would think this thing is going to drift. You know, 66 grams, that's a nice heavy car. Had some flexibility in the suspension. This thing was a drifting masterpiece. Close to 50-50. Obviously, it's a shorter car, so the weight distribution is 50-50. But kudos to Canuck. I am so impressed with how the build of this car and the performance that it had. But I'm going to have a Mini Cooper tournament in the future. I'm going to do it because this just impressed me so much. Great job. Finally, let's talk about this guy. An Evo. Bear with me a minute. This Evo that Ken Olsen put together, you see the details here, the decals and the paint job. He was actually mimicking the real racing rallycross Evos. So if you got to give praise to anybody, give praise to his attention to detail. He had a 78. I didn't enter it in this tournament. He had two. He sent 2 Evos over a year ago to me. And I promised him I'd put him in season 3. So here he is in season 3 with the number 5. And we're going to open this up, all right? You ready? We're going to take this car. I've already removed the screws, okay? And I'm going to show you inside what kind of suspension this car has. All right, here we go. Part of a tape measure. Pretty cool, huh? It's secured in the middle here with double-sided tape. So you can't really see it, but right where my X-Acto knife is pointing, there's double-sided tape right in the middle. And just like a springboard, diving board, it's got a cantilevered on both sides to the front axle and the rear axle. There's a little pad on this front axle. It's nothing more than double-sided tape with half of that plastic, like you see here, left on it. Same with the front axle. So you see, I can sit here and lift up, and you can see that the whole axle will lift up a certain degree. And you might think, well, that's not smart. That'll just bump against the rims. Well, he used smaller tires than the standard Evos. And so he had room in his wheel well. Same with the rear. You know, the rear may be a little bit tighter than the front. And I'm not sure that that's really a make or break. You know, I don't think that had a whole lot to do with its success. But this car, just, you know, once it got on the scrambler, it rarely got stuck and never flipped. So again, if I lift this up, you see that the axle is simply resting in its original place. But you notice that he used one piece of, here it is, you know, he just cut from a tape measure, and this is mine. I've actually practiced this and done it myself. Here's my tape measure. You can see I've cut almost 7 inches off of it. Practicing cutting and giving it a try on some of these cars to make a modified suspension. So this is the chassis, and when the interior is laid on, it lays right in here like so, and so this piece of tape measure fits in perfectly. And you simply lift lift, and you can pop the axle right out, okay? And same with the front side. That's how simple it is. Just a little bit of double-sided tape and cut up tape measure. I hope that helps you guys to understand just how simple it is. The next time I come on, I'll have a video coming up very soon. I'm going to share with you the results of all 9 pickups that I've been messing around with. I have been adding weight. I've been testing them on the track like 10 times down, running them down once the joker lane, 5 down the joker, 5 down the drift lanes. And I think you'll enjoy seeing the results. And if you're in my Are You Truckin' tournament or Are You Truckin' 2, I highly recommend you watch it. It'll help you make some design decisions, because I know everybody wants success. We want great racing. It's just that I happen to build like a Frankenstein looking track. It's a little different than your usual track. And so we're all trying to figure out, how do we control Frankenstein? Thanks, guys. Thanks, ladies. Talk to you soon.